So this presentation tonight is about the disruptive potential of project data analytics. And from my sort of perspective, this is a certain future, right? So it's something which will happen. I think what the uncertainty is the scale and the pace. So what's the adoption of this going to be, and what's the pace of implementation? So I'd like to sort of pose a question to everybody as well in terms of your preparation. What are you doing to ready yourself for this new future? So next slide is an overview really about the talk. And it's to say that disruption is coming, and project delivery roles will be impacted. And some of those roles are going to be reinvented. Business models will be disrupted, and some of those will be really significant in some industries and some business sort of models, especially in day rate consultancy and things like that. So the challenge for all of us is, what do we do to prepare for that? So I've not got all the answers tonight, because some of those are a bit of a Kodak moment, and you need to just go through and work out what you want to do as an organization and what you want to do as an individual to get yourself ready for it. So it's more about just trying to get you to think about what this new future looks like. So the things I'm going to run you through tonight are the context. So just to give you a backdrop in terms of what's going on. And from a personal perspective, why I think this disruption is inevitable. If we can start to reimagine what this project delivery looks like, then what would it be? And what do we do in terms of preparation? So I touch on context first of all. So there was a presentation that was given to the meetup, it was last year, by Alex Budzier, and he pulled together 12,000 projects, and I think it's up around the 16,000 projects now. So he's got a load of major projects from around the world, and the biggest data set as far as I know, and he's saying the probability of a project being on time, on cost, and on benefits or better is 0.5%. So that for me is something that we've got to act on, and it's no longer acceptable that we proceed on that basis. And I think as a profession, we've got to do something about it. In terms of the PMI survey, so the PMI Pulse of the Profession survey in 2018, they published that data there, which is about the number of projects that's met the original goals from their perspective. And this is a different data set to Oxford University's data set. So they're saying there in terms of the number of projects that's on time or on budget or etc. If we look back the last 7 or 8 years, you'll see there that it's pretty flat. It's not really stepping up significantly, and we'd like to change that. You know, we don't think that's acceptable. So that's something that we'd like to tackle. And in terms of the macro economic pictures, so if we think about large contractors, and we've got Costain and Kier at the top, which are big construction companies, and we've got Fleur and Babcock at the bottom, which are big engineering type companies and sort of major engineering projects. Their share prices have all tanked in the last 4 years or so. So we're now into a situation where these margins are really, really thin margins, and these companies will start to go to the wall. And if we don't change these models and we don't rethink the way we deliver projects, a lot of these companies won't exist in the future. So we've got to break the model, and we've got to rethink the way we do project delivery. And I think if we can find different ways of incentivizing clients and incentivizing suppliers, we will start to break that model. And I think a lot of that is going to be centered around data analytics. In terms of context as well, project management has changed a bit in the last 20 years, but it's not very significant if we compare this to the financial sectors, etc. And a lot of the industries around us. We're very, very slow to react, and we'd like to change that. So we're arguing that now is the time for this disruption. And if we just place that in context, in terms of COVID, we've got this unprecedented financial turmoil. So we've got a UK deficit of 337 billion, and we've got a national debt which is huge. and it's over 2 trillion. And in terms of all those forecasts for this financial year, that was based around a single wave model, and we've got a second wave that's started to ramp up now, so those numbers will just get worse. So we've got a moral and a economic responsibility to do something about this, and it's to deliver more for less. So we want to deliver more of these hospitals. So there's 40 hospitals in the pipeline, there's a load of roads in the pipeline, we've got railways, etc. We want them to be on budget or better, and we want to deliver more of them because they create jobs and they create economic prosperity as well. So I think we've all got an obligation to change this. In terms of examples tonight, I've got quite a few examples which tend to be focused around construction. And they're focused around construction because that's loads of the data that we can get our hands on. And in terms of this community, there's been a lot of people from construction in the past, and there's a lot of people involved in the apprenticeship as well from construction. We're starting to expand that as well. We've been having some conversations with the pharmaceutical sector, with defence. We're definitely having conversations with the oil and gas sector as well, and financial services is starting to build up. So it's going to impact every single sector. But just to put it in context, this is not just about construction. So I want to get at that. So if I can now touch on disruption, right? So the first one I'd like to touch on is about reimagining these roles. So we talk about something called project controls, and project controls is when we do risk management, schedule management, change management. And basically it's a team of people who's working with the project manager is to make sure we've got control of the project. And there's an apprenticeship on it. You can do a level 3 apprenticeship, takes 3 years, and they teach you about loads of things associated with scheduling, risk management, work breakdown structures, all that sort of stuff. If you put project controls definition into Google, this is the first thing that comes up. And it doesn't say in there you've got to be able to drive scheduling software or risk management software. It's talking about the data gathering, the data management of being able to predict, etc. That is a different skill set to the skill set we've currently got in project controls. And that is a statement of fact. So if we don't start to reimagine these roles, loads of these roles are going to start to become more and more obsolete. So we've got to keep up with this pace of change. So I think the question is this process about applying the process of change, schedule, cost and risk control, or is it about extracting insights from this data set to improve performance outcomes? I think that is a different question, and it's not a question that a lot of people are asking at the moment. So in terms of reinventing project controls, if you just look at 4 bits of software that's out there at the moment, and you can go buy these today. So Disperse.io, BuildDots, Contilio, and Reconstruct, and there are more. So what you do, you work around a building site with a camera on your hat, or it can go around on a little robot, and it takes photographs, and the 360-degree photographs. And what you can then do is compare that with your 3D model. And you can say something should be there, and it's not there at the moment. So that example of the picture there on the left is saying that you've missed some fireproofing out, and as soon as the plasterboard goes up on the roof, it's going to be sealed in, and you're going to have a breach on your building regulations, and you have to sort of rip the ceiling down to fix it. So you can now get this real-time feedback, and what that means is, in terms of the next thing down, the next picture on the left-hand side, if sort of scanning the building site, and you can say that something is being built or it's not being built, you've now got real-time performance on your schedule. So you know what's been done and what's not been done. And if it's not been done, then you can use the software then to say, let's reschedule some of these future activities, because you can build the logic into that schedule activity that says, let's start to replan things. So if you can do all that, what you're going to do with your project controls professionals in the future. And that's my challenge, I think, to all of you out there is, what does this mean for current roles? There's a picture there on the right-hand side, and that's from a Reconstruct. It's an American company, and they basically put cameras on cranes. and they look at the imagery and see what's been done every day on the outside of the building, and they use that and they can map it against the 3D model of the building and say what's been done in terms of performance. And Contilio's in the same space as well, and they got a load of money from government recently in terms of innovation money. And BuildDots has just been voted in by HS2 as one of their innovation projects. So that's a company that's founded by some Israelis and some Brits. So that's pretty cool. So all this technology is not a dreamland. It's not going to be here in 10 years' time. It's here today. It's available today. Some of it's pretty emergent, but you know, this is here with us now. And what I'd also like to say is, I speak to people and they say, right, I'm going to keep my same job. What we're going to do is set up this centralized data science team. So that means if you're a project controller and your data science team now is going to do all of that stuff, what's going to be left of your job? And it feels like a bit in the 1960s, if you've got a centralized typing pool and they're doing all of the typing, if a word processor comes along, what's the impact on that centralized team? And I think it's exactly the same in project delivery. We need to federate some of this. So all the things you can do on automation, Python scripts, Power BI, all needs to be federated down because it's the tools that you need as a project professional. Now, some of this top end stuff, we probably do need to go to a very skilled and very ninja data scientists and professionals, but a lot of this you can do yourself if you taught to do it. So I think we need to challenge and say, is this a centralized team or is it something that's federated, supported by a small cadre of ninjas? And I see people struggling with this now. There's a lot of organizations. We had a task force meeting this afternoon, and there are organizations struggling with this today. And it's probably going to find its way out in the next 12 to sort of 24 months. So I don't think there's a right answer which fits every single organization because you'll all be different. But just bear in mind, if you do centralize everything, what is your project team going to be doing as this becomes more and more mainstream, which it is. So in terms of these opportunities, they are everywhere. And if you listened to my talks before, you've probably seen this slide before, and I just rattled through it. So it's white space, a lot of this, right? It's not been done before. This is brand new emergent stuff. So if we look at risk, for instance, if we can start to now forecast the risk per work package or both phase based around everything that's gone before, we don't then need people second guessing what those risks might be or what their probability might be, because we've got a huge data set which starts to back it up. So we can say what the probability and the impact is going to be, contextualized based upon the weighting of different types of projects. We start to apply that to that project. It doesn't mean we get automated risk assessments, we get augmented risk assessments. You still need a human being, because every project is different, etc. So we still need a human being in that process. But it's now augmented by fact, and that starts to then counterbalance some of these sort of intuition and biases which might push you to be a bit more optimistic than you should be. We can look at snowballing, we can look at the risk factors. So if you're entering a window, so a risk window, which is when you need a heightened level of awareness of a certain risk, then it'll flag that up to you. And what you might want to do is put some sensors out there. It might be a little survey, might be sending your team out there, might be having more meetings with clients or suppliers, because you know that's when you're most predisposed to that risk sort of cropping up and escalating. So all of that is in your data set. It's our collective data set. So you can do the same with scheduling as well. What we don't tend to be very good at is look at the difference between the plan and the outturn and go back and say, why was that? And use that for next time round. And that might be in terms of norms, or it might be machine learning. So you can just start to update your schedules based upon everything that's gone before. So you can understand which part of a schedule is more predisposed to variance, so which things are likely to go wrong, and we can drive that forward as well. If I can pick on things like quality as well, so we can look at the quality process. So with project delivery, we want to know, is our team doing a good job? So our risk managers, for instance, are they managing risk effectively? And I could start off doing something very, very simple, which is, when's the last time you updated the risk register? I can do that easily. I can then say, if you've updated the risk register, has it been a material update, or have we just gone on and we tweaked a few words because somebody's nagged you to do it? So I can then measure, have you put the risks in there which you would expect to see at this time of a project? I can start to do that sort of thing. I can then go a bit more forensic and say, in terms of the issues that you've got on your project, are those issues coming straight in, or are those issues are passing through the risk register first? If they're coming straight in, you're probably asleep on the job, and your boss needs to know about that, because you might want some development, you might want some assistance. And you can't stop some of these. It's an act of God, you know, you didn't see it coming, you didn't see it coming. But if that is where the trend is going and you're missing a lot of things, then you're probably not very effective at risk management. All of that we can do today. You can do the same in safety as well. So we can look at the predisposition of certain parts of a construction site or a certain process to safety incidents, if that's affected by weather conditions or whatever. It's in your data set. And what we don't tend to do at the moment, so we can look at incident data, we don't tend to link that with observation data or with safety audit data. And that's something which we can change through the hackathons, and we're actively looking at that now. So we're going to something like change as well, so we can start to look at the volume of change. We can look at the predisposition of work packages to change. So if as a client, you are predisposed to changing your mind and that racks up the price, can you nail that before the contract is placed, or can you change the terms of that part of a contract? So it means you get a lot smarter about managing uncertainty and managing risk. Commercial as well, we can look at compensation events and the predisposition to claims. Have you got more suppliers who's a lot more litigant than other suppliers, who's probably more of a partner and more collaborative? So you can start to understand all of that. So it starts to become massive, and it gets even better once we start to join data together. So this is white space, and there's a huge amount of opportunity there for a lot of companies and a lot of startups to make a huge amount of margin. So it is brand new white space, and I think that is really disruptive. And the next thing is a company called Bride and Wood, and I keep bumping into Jamie Johnston on the conference circuit, and I talk to him at events as well. I've met him a few times. And Jamie's doing some really disruptive work, and is doing a similar thing to us, but on a bigger scale in construction and more at the design and architectural end. So he's giving away software, for instance, which can now fully automate the design of a motorway. And because it's all logic based, and you know that you need some road markings, have a mile before the junction, you need a gantry that needs to be at certain spaces, you know where you're going to get fog pockets, you know what your lighting interval needs to be. All of that can be coded. So you codify it in a piece of software, which then can automatically design a motorway. And he's done that, and he did it with a project with Highways England, and he's open sourced it. So if you are a motorway designer today, you're probably taking a deep breath and saying, what's left, right? He's done the same with things like school designs, for instance, and he's saying with schools, you've got this kit of parts, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, but it's really disruptive in terms of the way that he's looking at the creation of designs. So if you can do that for a design of a motorway, and could we do it for the construction of a motorway where it's very logic based? It takes a lot of intuition. It's a bit more difficult to do it. So there's a certain amount you can do with machine learning, because you learn from sort of various other people's data and various other people's codification of intuition. But we can definitely get a lot further than where we are today. So if Jamie's doing this in design, I'm absolutely convinced we can do it in project delivery. Jamie's doing that today, and is giving that piece of software away. So what he's also done is this kit of parts approach. So what he said is, he's giving away a piece of software that says, If you've got a piece of land and you want to build a school on it, if you tell me the number of pupils you've got, the number of classrooms, we will automatically configure a school for you. And we know where the toilets need to go in relation to the classrooms. We know the size of the corridors. We know that a broom cupboard needs to be in a dead piece of space as well that's not being used, etc. And then he's saying, in terms of those classrooms, you've probably got a 20-person classroom, a 30-person classroom, you've probably got an assembly hall, etc. All of those are fairly standardized. So if you can rock up with this IKEA kit of parts, then you can start to manufacture a school a lot more cost effectively than building one bespoke. And just imagine if you've got a kit of parts that turn up on the back of a lorry and it says, I'll put the red bolt in the red hole and put the blue bolt in the blue hole, you really start to de-skill construction, which means you can go to the job market then and fill the roles a lot easier. Now, what does that mean for project professionals? So all your things about trying to schedule things and sort your logistics out, it can all be codified. So what does it mean for project delivery professionals? And I think it's quite a scary future for us, because it means it's a lot more systematic and the risk is a lot easier to understand. But that's for greenfield sites. We've still got things on refurbs, we've got brownfield sites, we've got one-offs, you've got all the logistic problems that go with it, you've got all your stakeholder management, people complaining that the noise is too loud and you've got to close down, you've got COVID incidents, you've got all these other things. So it doesn't mean that you don't need a project manager anymore, but it's going to be a very different job. So I think we need to wake up to this future. You know, it's with us today and this stuff's coming. There's a lot of money going into design for manufacture and assembly type approaches. And it's applied in construction. I think it's going to go into other industries as well. And I think it's a great sort of model. What we've also got, if we think about some of these main contractors out there, they're starting to move into this space as solution developers. So you probably saw a month ago that Costain is releasing a product called Annie, and that's where they're getting into basically, it's a machine learning type PMO. So they've got a software product that they're going to be working on. And what does that mean for the industry? So it means that you've got a construction company now who's starting to get into product development of artificial intelligence tools, right? And that's a pivot. We've not really seen that before. So the first time I've seen it in terms of construction. I'm sure there's people out there who say there's loads of examples, but I think that's a really, really sort of candid example and a very relevant one as well. You got Arcadis back in 2018 acquired a data company. So they're now starting to say, as part of their sort of portfolio of capabilities, they need something in the mix. And I'd say, I think that's a great step forward because it does need to be in your mix, but there's a downside as well, is that if you become a vendor, does that mean that you are tied to your products? Let me explain what I mean by this. So this is from Innovate UK's round from, I think it was 2019. So it's through the Transforming Construction round, and Balfour Beatty won a load of money from government, working with Leeds University and Coventry University to basically do 4 things associated with the automation of building information modeling. So one of those things in there was to automate the BIM file naming conventions. So at the moment, if you want to name a file in BIM and go and search, save it somewhere so everybody else can find it and it's in the right place and it's all codified, you need to look up through a lot of standards what that BIM file name should be. So they said, well, let's automate that and we can create a product off it and go and sell it, which is great. So they got £900,000 project together, about £600,000 from government, and they've been working on this. So in parallel with this, we didn't know about this at the time, we worked something up too, and we just used something called UiPath, which is a commercially available piece of software, and they've got a a consumer edition of it, which you can use for free. And we did most of that in about a week. So if we can do this in a week, and somebody else is doing it for the best part of £200,000 so they can create a product, if you are into products, it can start to lock you into a route that is a really expensive solution instead of using things like off-the-shelf tools. So there is a downside to becoming a vendor. And I think we all need to look at those downsides, especially if we start to do things such as democratizing some of these tools. So that's just one example. So if we start to reimagine this project delivery, right? You think about Blockbuster, you think about Kodak. So Blockbuster, a load of people think, well, they didn't sort of respond to it. They were too late. They were sat there fat and happy. So basically their chief exec saw this coming. So he first of all saw that Netflix is this niche player. And then they saw the demise of the video, and he spent a lot of money. I think it was $400 million building up their online platform. And when the investors got involved, and they saw the numbers involved, they said, that's not a future they want to go down. So he was sacked. The franchisee, so it's a franchise model, thought, we're going to close a lot of our shops down. So he was fired. His strategy was reversed, and 3 years later it went bankrupt. In terms of Kodak, you think, well, a film-based business, you just didn't react. They reacted fully, so they invented the digital camera. But once again, it made a lot of its money from developing film. It invested in printing digital photos, and it became increasingly irrelevant, and it went bankrupt in 2011. So in both of those cases, people did see it coming and reacted, but there's only so much you can do, or your investors say to you, you're stuck on a journey and we're not sure that's the way we want to be going. So it's, for me, I think it's exactly the same for a day rate consultant model in this space at the moment. So my previous business, right, which I was a part shareholder in, a 50% shareholder, we did exactly this, some of the day rate stuff. It's all about selling expertise and professional expertise. So the more expertise you've got and the bigger projects you've worked on, the bigger your rate. Knowledge is power, and knowledge creates revenue. And if you start to automate some of this stuff and you start to do it better and quicker, you get less days, so you get less revenue. In terms of that part of the business, it tends to be dominated by the larger organizations, your Jacobs, Atkins, those sort of companies. And in terms of your selection of candidates, it tends to be based upon your knowledge and your experience. Now, if we flip that upside down and say, we've now got an insight-based business, if you're selecting somebody, you want somebody who's going to bring you in a lot of automation so you can improve efficiency and repeatability and start to take this data from one project and feed it through to the next project. So it's more of a partnership type arrangement. So you want to get better at predicting variance so you can leverage all of these data sets. And it's not just your data set, it's your full supply chain data set, your client's data set, etc. You can start to target these interventions based upon all of that data, and you start to sort of blend this domain expertise. So you still need some of those knowledge people, and you need to blend it with advanced data analytics. And what that does then, it starts to level the playing field, and it starts to open up these opportunities for niche providers. So in future, you're probably going to be selected on the basis of your ability to provide effective insights and doing more with less and improving a delivery confidence. Now, if you're sat in a cash cow business and you're there and you're selling bums on seats all day long, you probably don't want to get involved in this. You don't want to spend a lot of people, have a lot of cash taking people off the front line to do the training and to learn about this stuff, because it's going to cost you revenue because you can sell those bums on seats. So I think we're in a Kodak and a Blockbuster moment for some companies, is that if you don't get on this bus and you don't work out your revenue model, you're going to be in terminal decline. So I think we'll see this starting to unfold, stroke unravel in the next 12 to 24 months. And I think that's really interesting. So in terms of the client's role, right, so I presented this slide a lot in the past. So it's a slide from when Crossrail came along to the Project Data Analytics meetup in August of 2018. And all the data in red is the data that is passed over to Rail for London for the operation of the railway. And all the data in blue is stuff that comes out the back of a project as a big exhaust plume. So if we think, if you've got a pipeline of these projects, so you're doing a one railway and another railway and another railway, what can you do to leverage insights from that data set? And there's got to be stuff in those schedules, contract administration. There's something like £6 billion worth of risk and contingency in there. So if you can avoid just 10% of that, £600 million you can save. So the client has got to become more strategic in terms of the way that they start to value and engage with this data. And if that's the case, you've got to start to contract for data availability. So if you buy a tank today or an aircraft, you want a technical data pack that comes with it so you can maintain it and look after it, etc. If you're buying something in the future, would you want a technical data pack which has got a lot of information in it, which is similar to that in blue? So you can then start to leverage it and start to use it from one project to the next. So it's not just your data as a client, which you think has got a load of insights in it. It's the end-to-end data pipeline. And if you're a client, like a government client, for instance, you've only got a very, very small amount of data today because most of your money is spent across the supply chain. So what you want is visibility of all of that data. Now, some of that data people will not give you because it's profit data, it's going to be commercial issues in there, commercially sensitive. And that's where we promote the idea of a data trust, because it means everybody can start to pool that data and start to share it for the benefit of all. And it means that you can see the client's data up to a certain extent, depending upon what the client is allowing you to see. And you can start to get some aggregated insights from that data, which is only possible because you've all put your data together. So what we've got to do to enable this to work is to develop these taxonomies, ontologies, and standards. So it means we all start to work to a common rule book. And we've all got to become experts in extracting value from this data. It's got to become a very, very key tool set for project delivery professionals, especially in client organizations. It's got to be things that reward collegiate behaviors. So you've got to work to the greater good and start to get these data pipelines going so we can make sure the next project is more, is better, it's delivered quicker, and it's delivered cheaper than the previous one. So that could start to transform procurement strategies. And I'll talk about that in a few slides' time. In terms of this integrated and pooled data, so if you've got a project such as the A14, which is a big road project, 1.5 billion road project around Cambridge, you'd award that contract to somebody and they set up an ecosystem to go with it. So they set up a brand new team, because it'll be a JV. They turn up with a load of tools and software, and they go into the marketplace and buy a load of cloud services, etc. So we set up a brand new business basically. So just imagine in the future, if we could now start to pool some of this data. So every single project, you can now start to take your schedule, your risk, your cost, compensation events, all of that sort of stuff, and bundle it together. Then you can start to rethink the way you deliver each of these projects. You don't need to start from scratch because you've now got this ecosystem that you can plug into a project. You've got standardized reporting and workflows. So the A14 team, for instance, don't use PowerPoint anymore. And nobody's frigging the data. It's all reported straight up through Power BI into the board, and it's real time. So there's some things they need to do to check the cleanliness of the data. So there is a human in the loop on that process just to make sure that it's working properly, but it's a lot less than it used to be in the past. And if we start to roll that out onto every project, that really changes the role of a lot of these project professionals. What we can also get is this end-to-end data integration. So it's not just looking at client data or your supplier data, it's all the way down to tier 3s and tier 4s, where you've got these end-to-end data pipelines through apps. So we can have automated progress reporting as well through build dots and that sort of capabilities. You can have variance prediction and analysis and all the lead indicators that go with it. You can start to preempt some of this change, and you can redefine performance incentives as a consequence of all of that. So that for me is a very, very different job than a grey-haired man like me who's going to come up with a load of experience from some big projects and guess what's going to go wrong based upon my intuition. And if I'm really good and I've had a lot of experience, I've probably worked on probably 6 major projects, maybe 10. And with this data set, if we start to pool it globally, you'll have hundreds of thousands of projects in it. So it's going to be a lot better than the best expert out there. And there's books by Daniel Kahneman, and Daniel got a Nobel Prize for his work on the way as sort of humans, we take that data and process it. And basically, if you've had a bad loss, so if you're betting, you would put that down to a freak incident, and you'd write it off and say, well, that's not going to happen again. And he's proven that through his research, and he's written a book on it, and it's a very worthwhile book to read. So it's called Thinking Fast and Slow. And he talks about some of the human aspects of the way that we process data. So it's biased and it's built into us as human beings, and it's an intrinsic part of human behavior. If we can use machines to start to temper that, then that's great for everybody. So in terms of some examples, right? So in highway, schools, a hospital, or decommissioning projects in the North Sea, for instance, if we can understand what the schedule logic is, so if we're building a house, you always know you put the foundations down before you put the walls down, before you put the roof on. We know that logic is predetermined. So why do we need to schedule that on every single job? There's some parts of that which is fairly straightforward, and some parts of it needs to be bespoke. We know what the durations are because there'll be norms. You look at a set of data and it gives you a better prediction of a duration than an estimator could. Or in some instances, it will be augmented because it's a one-off job and it needs a human in the loop. You can start to understand your predisposition to variance, productivity norms, impact of weather, etc. So why do we need to reinvent all of that above for every single project? So could we create an enduring PMO in highways, for instance, which now starts to use this data from one job to the next job to the next job to the next job, instead of just recreating this all the time? And it means that the next project should always be better than the previous project, not different to the previous project. So if you select a JV to deliver road number 1, and you select a different JV to deliver road number 2, if they're working off a common data set, that road number 2 should always be better than road number 1. So instead of selecting contractors then based upon their bid or based upon their price, you start to select them now based upon their ability to drive up productivity and delivery performance. So it's doing more for less with greater confidence. So I think, in the future, we're going to be looking at some of these projects, and instead of awarding contracts on the basis of price, it's going to be looking at this collegiate relationship in the interests of the client. And I think, this is starting to change as well because of the national data strategy that came out. So the national data strategy has basically said, government is sat on a load of data, and that data has got a load of intrinsic value. It's time we start to open this data up. And if we open it up to a load of innovators, we'll be able to get a load of advancements across various sectors and various industries, which will transform the way the government spends its money. So if clients are going to start to demand this, because this is part of the national data strategy, every company is going to need an end-to-end project data strategy. It's not just your data, because you're just part of a chain of events. You need to make sure your data is all integrated with everybody else's data. And it's making sure you've got the data foundations in place, the data skills, availability of data, and the responsible use of data. So you can get hold of a load of your suppliers' data. Are you going to get that data and go and beat them up with it? If you do, this is all going to collapse and it's not going to work because it's going to be a confrontation. We need to reposition it so it's a lot more collaborative. Now, we've been looking into this for the last 3 or 4 years into ways of getting hold of data, because we know that across government, they spend billions and billions and billions of pounds a year, and they've got the best data set out there. So we've been trying to get hold of it, and we struggled a little bit. So in 2019, we put in a load of freedom of information requests, and it went to the ICO, and the ICO ruled against us. So it went to courts, and we won. So the courts ruled in our favour, and they said it's in the public interest that this data is released. And this is before the National Data Strategy. So the National Data Strategy is adding further weight to this argument, is that this is public data which has got a public interest in it. So if you're in the public service at the moment, I'd argue with you very, very strongly that data you're set on, we can all use it together. I'm not saying release this and go and publish it into WikiLeaks next week. I don't think that's the right answer, but we can look at the use of collaborative working and using data trust and that sort of stuff, where we can drive insights out of this data. So hiding sort of behind these FOI exemptions about commercial sensitivities is no longer sustainable, and it will be challenged. So we've got a brand new era. I think it's really, really exciting. And it's something we should all rise to and make the most out of this data. We've got so much between us. Let's get a load of insights from it. So I'd like to move on to data trust now. So this was part of government strategy in 2017. So it's their artificial intelligence strategy. And it says that we need to develop these data trusts, and we've got to get this thing that is trustworthy, where we can start to share data or pool data. Sharing data implies you see my data, I see your data, and we can see each other's. And personally, I think a better term is about pooling data. So you put some data in the middle and you agree what insights you can get from that data without necessarily giving each other visibility of the raw data. So it's more of a broker. So what we did, we put 4 innovation proposals into government. And one of those proposals, we went from a team of 2 people up to 12 people, or 12 companies, 12 organizations. And we also had letters of support from another 25. And our score went up by 2 points. So we took all the feedback from the previous one. And the problem was people were scoring the proposal as they saw it, as opposed to scoring the words in the proposal. So there was some human intuition in there, which was basically saying it was too big, it's too bold, and it's undeliverable. So the government strategy is saying, let's do this thing. When it comes to a working level about marking it, they don't think it's possible. So there's a serious disconnect between government intent and the reality of trying to make these things fly. So what we've done is we've taken it back to industry and we've said, let's do it anyway. So we've now got a construction data trust going. It's working with Sir Robert McAlpine, a projected success. We're working with Microsoft, we're working with lawyers, etc. And we've got this thing mobilized now. So what we're trying to do is to pull this data for everybody's benefit, basically. And if we can make this work, we start to provide access to research, to vendors, to consultants, and to each other, so we can start to share this data set. And we've got the volume of data now, so it can start to drive advanced data analytics. It can start to drive artificial intelligence. We can start to benchmark our own data quality and start to drive up data quality. We can create the business case to get the investment, so we can go on this journey quicker and with greater gusto. We create a load of jobs off the back of it. It's just win-win-win for everybody and for the economy. So what we're trying to do is to share solve some shared challenges associated with productivity to start with, and then move into health and safety and sustainability, etc. So if we get this going right, and we can use the hackathon, for instance, to develop some apps and some tools and some insights, then we can start to facilitate these end-to-end data pipelines. So it drives up the data quality and availability. But it's not just the data by itself, it's the pooling of data. So a few hacks ago, we released a load of data, which we got from Alex Budger at Oxford University on some ICT data from the States. And a chap from the community, Lawrence Rowland, took that data and he put it into a graph database and started to derive all the associations between that data. And that then starts to show you about this predisposition. It shows you which sort of projects are more predisposed to variance than other projects, etc. It's only when you connect the data that's a major sort of order of magnitude change in terms of the benefits that you can get from it. So we like all the theory associated with graph databases, which is that connection between these disparate data sets. But part of the problem is we don't have the right data today, and this is something we need to solve. So we need to understand what is likely to go wrong next week. So if you want to understand that, you start to reverse engineer it. You probably need to understand what are the risks and what's the dynamic nature of that risk that's likely to hit you next week based upon everything that's gone before. The same for issues. And what's the maturity of your team and your expertise in terms of delivering projects? Are you good at risk? Are you good at scheduling? Are you good at all these things? What's your team dynamics? You know, you're burning your team. Is your team about to blow up? What's your supplier performance, etc., etc., etc. All of that is going to inform you on what's likely to go wrong next week. And a lot of this we're not collecting today. So what we need to do is to look at these use cases we're trying to solve. That's one of them. And I reckon there's over 1,000 that we probably need to go into. What we need to do then is to work up the data models, the taxonomies, the ontologies, and the standards, so we can get something that we can share across loads of different industries, so we can work out what we need to do. We can then compare the data model and the use cases and the data we've actually got through a gap analysis and say, this is the change program that we need to put in place so we've got better data in the future. And people who really nail this quickly will go the fastest and get to this artificial intelligence future much, much quicker than others. And if it takes you 3 or 4 years to get that pipeline because of your volume of projects, if you can start early, potentially you've got 3 years sort of advancement on somebody else and one of your competitors. So it's working up the data pipelines and making sure those pipelines are automated wherever possible. You don't want people fat fingering sort of data through keyboards if you can avoid it. So we talk about predisposition as well. And predisposition, this is a great slide from Alex Budger and from Bent Fluvier as well. So this is about the predisposition of certain projects to variance. So you'll see that solar power projects have got a mean cost overrun of 1%, and nuclear power projects have got a mean cost overrun of around 122%. So we know that certain projects are more predisposed to variance than other projects. There's loads of analysis being done on this and people pontificate on what the reasons for that are. And you come up with these success factors, and they've been published for the last 40 years. But we need to be a lot more forensic about it. So we need to understand which of those work packages are more sort of predisposed to variance, which suppliers are, which clients are. And a client, some of the clients I've worked with are predisposed to changing their minds. And if they change their minds and that starts to impact things, then what does that mean for overall project performance? We lose that because it's lost in the data set. It's encoded in the data set, and we can bring it out and start to demonstrate the cost of some of these decisions that have been made. If we can feed that back in a feedback loop, then we can educate people and say, are you sure you want to make that decision? Because there's implications of it. So we start to build up this forensic understanding of predisposition, and I think that's really exciting. What we can also do is start to democratized solutions. So if you think about a health and safety dashboard, it doesn't give you a commercial edge if you've got a better health and safety dashboard than somebody else. It just means you've got more and different data in it. So why don't we just have a couple of these? We give them away to everybody with safety audit data, with incident data, with loads of other stuff, and people fill it in with a common set of terms and a common taxonomy and ontology that goes with it. If we've got that, the data quality shoots up, it all goes into a centralized data set, so we can use it then to predict if somebody's going to get hurt. And that's in society's interest, it's in everybody's interest. So why don't we do it? It seems mad that we don't do it. And because it only takes a few days to knock up one of those dashboards, why would you want to charge for it anyway? Because it's not going to be worth very much, because it's so easy to do. So let's give these things away. And through the hackathon, we can give away so much of this technology, right? If it's configuring the Microsoft environment, then let's just configure it and give that configuration away. Let's not do it 500 times across the industry, everybody configuring slightly differently to do the same thing. It's madness. So if we can work together and start to pull those capabilities, we'll go a lot quicker. And that means that organizations then can start to focus on these top end commercial differentiators. Dev came along a couple of weeks ago for our last meetup, and he talked about sort of M-Plan's view for disrupting procurement strategies. And Dev's saying, if you put a bid in and it's the quickest project with the lowest cost, then you're likely to win it. And the client probably knows from day one that the probability of delivering that project on time, on cost, is pretty low. And I think he gave an instance where it was 0.1 or something like that. If that's the case, you're setting yourself up for litigation. So you're setting yourself up for a fight before you even start. So if we can bid for realism, we can start to look at this data set, and you can understand what the sweet spot is. You then want to start to contract for what's your risk management approach or your management of contingencies, so you can bring that data in from the most likely prediction that the shared data set have got. So you start to change the way you procure. What we also need to do is start to think about this bidding process overall and start to disrupt it. We've been doing a lot of this. So this is part of the work we've been doing through the FOI process as well, is getting hold of all the bid feedback scores. And you start to detect a lot of variance, and you can see that different clients in terms of government clients are scoring very similar things very differently. And in some cases, they'd score them 50%. In another case, they'd score them at 90-odd%. Now that's huge. So this bidding process, we can demonstrate that some of it is a lottery. And if you're bidding at 3% of a construction job and it's costing you millions of pounds, why would you want to be doing that if you're only making a 2% margin anyway? So we need to go and reinvent some of this bid process. And what you tend to do in your bid, you put in a section as part of your bid about your approach to health and safety, sustainability, business resilience, etc. Why don't we score that once? You know, once every year or once every 2 or 3 years or something, it's scored once, and that data is then kept in a vault somewhere, and it's available to everybody who wants to access it. It might be through a blockchain type approach or similar, but it's encoded in that blockchain so we can all see it. And if you've got your health and safety performance and it's all logged, and if you've got a major incident, it's got to be published anyway as part of the health and safety executive, why don't we capture all of that and keep some health and safety logs on it? So we can start to do this. If we pull this data, we make the bids a lot cheaper to write, because we don't have to keep writing the same thing time and time again and just tailor it for different clients. We just get rid of it and say that's a common denominator for each bid. So what we can do now is focus on these specific differentiators, and those differentiators are about extracting things from the data set so we can deliver things with greater productivity and greater insights. And a lot of this has been really difficult because you've got European law on procurement. All that's going to change soon. So there's no reason why we can't do this. So let's do it. It's cool stuff. If we've got predictive capabilities as well, where from this data set, I can predict the winner of a bid and that's the picture there, bottom right. So on some frameworks, we're predicting the winner with 91% confidence. If we can do that, is that then going to collapse the procurement process? What's the consequences of all of that? All of that needs thinking through. It's really disruptive. Yeah. What we also talk about is knowledge management. So people talk about explicit and tacit knowledge. And I've done a lot of work on this knowledge management. In my previous company, I recruited 2 knowledge managers. And I thought were great people, really believed in it. And as soon as there's a little tweak in terms of budgets and the pressure on budgets, it's always the first thing to go. And I've seen it in this current downturn as well. There's a lot of knowledge managers who's lost their jobs. And we just need to start to rethink the way that we view explicit and tacit knowledge. So people say, you can't write everything down, so you need to sort of have things like human experience, because human experience encodes all that tacit knowledge. That was the case, but that's starting to change, right? I'm not saying that that iceberg's going to sort of completely pop out the water, but it's probably going to be 50-50. Is if we can take this knowledge graph, and it's called the knowledge graph for a reason, right? It's basically a graph database where we can start to join together assumptions, dependencies, expertise, correlation, and establish causality. Then we can start to move that line down and start to bring some of that tacit knowledge, which is encoded in data, and start to extract it. So we can derive best practice. We can start to look at heuristics as well, because machine learning does that. That's its role. So we can start then to moderate some of this intuition. So I'm not saying you get rid of people. I'm saying that you augment their decision-making process. And that's huge, and that's happening. And it's going to happen more and more and more. And the people who's really good at this will be able to deliver projects a lot better, a lot quicker, with increased certainty. So next one is on insurance. So there's 2 aspects to insurance. If you start to understand the predisposition of a project to variance, and you can share that with your insurer, and you're on top of that variance, does that mean your insurance starts to come down? So it's going to start to impact the way that you insure people. And in terms of professional insurance, as a project delivery professional, if you have disregarded some key information and you've exposed the organization to some risk, is that reckless? And is that going to get you in problems with your insurer? And is that a sort of uninsurable risk? So there's loads of things in there which we now sort of need to start to consider. So what I'd like to do next is to pass back to Mentimeter again. So let me drag this over. And I'd like to pose a few more questions. So in terms of the impact of this on your business, right? So it's not about you as an individual, it's on your business. What do you think the impact is going to be based upon everything I've been talking about? We've got 7 people voted, 8 people voted. So what's you doing it? I'd love to have a conversation with you as well about it, because I think this is really, really exciting stuff, you know, really game changing stuff. We only got 25 people there, 26. If we get a few more as well, you get your phones out again, get on Mentimeter. So menti.com 62 13 95 1 and keep voting. So that's just 7% of people who think it's normal, sort of normal evolution. A quarter of people think it's a potential Kodak moment. And if you're in that business, does that mean you're going to lose your job? Because the business is going to go bust? So I think we've all got an obligation to take this back to organizations and say, we've got to get on this bus and do something about it, guys, right? I don't want to see companies going bust. Let's get them all reinventing and getting ready for this future. I think it's really exciting. So another question for you. So in terms of the preparedness of your organization, if you can answer some of those questions for me, I'll be very grateful. I'd love to see what your feedback is on those.
We have a question here, Martin, from Ramin. Can the hackathons be used to propose some use case definitions and data standards that we need to democratize, in addition to democratizing specific tools, of course?
So what I'd like to do, Ramin, in terms of the use cases, I mean, in terms of things like hackathons, for instance, is to say, by the end of next year, Just imagine we've got 200 people as part of the apprenticeship. There's a weird line there, sorry about that, that's my fault. If we've got 200 people as part of the apprenticeship, each of those people will need to get involved in these hackathons. If that's the case, we've got a massive resource now to start to make a change for this sort of task force agenda. So we can do data standards, we can do anything that that community wants to do, and they've got to do it as part of their apprenticeship. So we can develop things like standards, ontologies, etc. And part of that's going to be done through the task force as well. So it just means we've now got this collegiate effort of lots of people all coming together with a shared objective. And it's really disruptive, right? Just imagine we've got 200 people who all understand this stuff and are all passionate about making a difference. And they wouldn't be on the apprenticeship unless they felt that way. So it's huge, really, really huge. And that's coming, I think, in the next 12 months. It's going to be really big. So I think that slide speaks for itself. There's some understanding of it, right? So it understands the potential. Some organizations don't. So there's 6 people who are saying that they don't. Some people understand they don't. About 13 who understand, mid players, and 1 company who really gets it. Actively exploring it, so that's where the bulk of it is. And my organization has got existing initiatives, so there's not a lot going on. There's 2 companies got some initiatives going on, and not a lot of people's got a clear strategy and a plan. And that's what I've seen, actually. There's not a lot of people who really understand this and know where they're going with it. And I'd have expected that to be a bit more up here, actually. But so that's interesting. That's great feedback. Thank you. So back to the main presentation again. So let me drag this out of the way. And I'll try and canter through the last slides for you. So what should we do in terms of preparation? So I've talked about this launch event of this task force, and this is going to be huge for us because it now means, right, it's not owned by anybody, this is 12 passionate people who's come together to try and solve a problem. Everybody believes in it. We all understand its potential. And what we're saying is, if we work together and drive this forward, we're looking at a 10 times improvement over that 0.5% figure. Now, if we can drive it up to 5%, it's still bad, right? But it's a lot less bad than it was before. And that's going to save us a fortune. So if you want to get involved in it, please sign up to the launch event. The bit.ly link is there. So it's 35Z3, a capital GVO. Please get involved and tell your colleagues about it. If you're at work and you can't get the time off work, just say to your boss, right, we need to be on this bus, because if we're not on this bus, we're going to fall behind and it's a potential Kodak moment. So please spread the word around your bosses and everybody else, and please get them involved in it. It's really important for all of us. So next thing is in terms of strategy, right? So what's your portfolio and your project data strategy? It's different to your company data strategy. Because your company data strategy, you'll say, have you got GDPR in place? Have you got appropriate firewalls and all that sort of stuff? That's not what you need here. You want to know, what is your data strategy of working with your client and your suppliers? Where's your data going to go? What's your level of ambition? Where do you want to be by when? And what's your sort of approach to fingering data in versus getting end-to-end and Internet of Things and all that sort of stuff? What skills do you need as well? So you're going to have this centralized typing pool of data scientists, or are you going to federate this across all of your people? Do you need a top-level roadmap to deliver it as well? Is this going to be a journey for the next 40 years? Or is this something you're going to try and sprint through in the next 2 years? And it's not just about you, right? You can't deliver this in a vacuum. It's got to be delivered across organizational boundaries. It's huge. So what we also need to do is we need to upskill people. And we've talked about this before about creating these project data analysts. And from my perspective, it's a new sort of role, right? It's a pie-shaped role where somebody's got a broad understanding of the business, so they get the business context. They've got one leg in project delivery, and they know this is not an Amazon data set that's streaming out the back of a computer and is beautifully clean. It's really messy data. It's hard to get hold of. your risks are ill-defined, etc., it takes a certain level of skill to do that. So we need one leg in data analytics and one leg in project delivery where you understand these constraints. And there's an example there of the sort of people that we start to bring into the apprenticeship. And these are, in the main, they're existing staff. There's a few new starters, but most of them are existing staff. So look to upskill, because it's a future which is undeniable. It will happen, and there's going to be some Kodak moments in it. So let's get ready for it and make sure that we're agile enough to make a difference. So in terms of upskilling, I come to these meetups twice a month. If you've got a talk that you want to share, please get in contact. I need to go and fill up the backlog of talks as well, and I'll be reaching out to some of the task force members as well to fill up some of those talks. In the next few months as well, we're doing a lot more work with the APM, PMI and the MPA, where we're going to be doing some joint events, which is great news. We're all pulling together, and this sort of task force has been a facilitator for that, which is great. And have a look at other meetups as well. So there's Mark Wilcox, London Business Analytics Group. And Mark's doing some great stuff on Power BI and that sort of stuff. There's Rishi's as well. So Rishi's doing some stuff in financial services. So there's loads of resources out there. But the problem is with the meetups, you get told stuff, but you don't necessarily practice it. So come along to the hackathon. It costs you 10 or 20 quid to get in, depending upon what discounts I've got on. Any money we make from the tickets always goes to cancer research. So it's not a money-making thing. It's to give you an opportunity to open your eyes to this new future. And it's really inspiring. So it's every 4 months. It's delivered with Microsoft as well. So we've got them in the room. You get free vouchers to get a load of Azure services. So you can have a play about with all this stuff. And you'll open your eyes to it all. So if you've never done it before, come along and get involved. And the previous one, the best piece of work I saw, they didn't win, but the previous one, which I thought was really impressive, was they took a load of data from Baker Hughes. So one of the apprentices is a senior guy, senior program manager. He took a load of data, 95,000 activities in schedules. And he said, we keep estimating these parts of a schedule, but I can't work out the best way of going through all those bits in a schedule and working out what the outturn was versus the forecast, so I can go and update the forecast. And he did a cracking job of it. And he worked with a team of 6 people, and he used machine learning then to update his forecast and sort of look at the certainty of each of those activities. It can also now drill into, from those 96,000 activities, which ones are giving him the most problems. And he did that in 2 days. So if you can do that in 2 days, just imagine in 12 months' time when we've got 200 people in there, all working over a weekend, and the apprentices rock up on a Friday as well, so they got an extra day to prep for it. Just imagine what we're going to do, all of us together. It's phenomenal, right? So get involved in the Project Data Academy as well. So every 2 to 3 months, and it might be sort of every month soon because there's a lot of demand on it that's building up. It's 95 to 100% funded by government as well. It's the equivalent of a foundation degree, structured learning, and you get taught by industry practitioners as well. So please get involved. Our next cohort, a few seats left, but I think they're going to go quickly. And there's going to be another cohort after that on the 16th of November. So please get involved and we'll help you on this journey. But this is just part of what we do, right? This is all a integrated thing, which is meetups and hackathons. It's all about educating you. And then when we've done that, let's all work together through the task force to really drive it forward. So in summary, this is a future which is inevitable, and in some cases it's already with us. What the uncertainty is the pace and what we all do to engage with it. And many of these capabilities are available today, but we lack the momentum and the cohesive force that pulls us all together. And we're changing that through the task force, and I think that's really exciting. We can move much, much quicker collectively than individually. Opening up data is going to be a big driver to that, and we're starting to do that in industry. Hopefully government's going to join us on that journey as well. And bearing in mind that data is not government's data, it's public data. Business models are going to be impacted, and that's for certain, and 25% of people have said today that there's a potential Kodak moment coming up. So we need to develop these strategies and the plans to react. Roles are going to be impacted, that's for certainty. So please get involved, upskill and adapt and get ready for this brand new future.